Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're jumping into week number 3 of commercial diving school. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like if you enjoyed, leave any comments or questions down below, and let's get started. Today we're talking about physics. We started our whole physics lesson on Friday, and now we're continuing it on Monday, today, and then tomorrow we're going to do a huge review on all the physics stuff we learned so far, and then the next day, Wednesday, we're going to take a test on physics. So after I talk about physics, I'm going to be talking a little bit about VA and the post 9/11 GI Bill. So if anybody's thinking about going to use your benefits for school, or commercial diving school, stay tuned for that, because I'm going to mention how much of your benefits or how much of your 36 months is it going to take away. So first things first, for breakfast this morning there was bacon and eggs, and they had some kind of little coffee cake to go along with it. And then we jumped into our morning muster at 8 a.m. and then after that we headed on over to the classroom to continue our lessons in physics. So what I want to share with you guys is the most important thing about physics I think that we learned, which has to do with the different gases you breathe when you're diving, which is oxygen and nitrogen. Once you get down to deep depths, once you get down to deeper depths, these gases start to affect you. You start to have to introduce other gases like helium. So for example, if you're diving below, some people it starts to affect you at 160, but let's just say 190 for the average person. Once you get below 190, breathing normal percentage of air, which is 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen, just breathing normal air, once you get below 90, that nitrogen starts to affect you and make you some kind of, like drunk kind of feeling. They call it narked out, or nitrogen narcosis, and you can start introducing helium to the mix, and then that will snap you kind of back into reality and you'll be fine. Helium doesn't have the same properties as nitrogen does, so introducing helium, you can breathe it just fine, and it actually lowers the concentration of nitrogen so that you won't have the effects that nitrogen has, because it'll be at a lower percentage. So this has to do with diving physics, because we have to know how much nitrogen is in your system. And then another important thing to know is how much oxygen is in your system, because if you have too much oxygen, then it can become toxic. So the deeper that you go, the higher percentage of oxygen is going to be absorbed into your system. And above, they do a atmospheric scale of how much our oxygen, in terms of parts per million, gets absorbed into your body at a certain depth. And they say 1.4 is kind of the range, kind of the ceiling or max, because once you start getting above 1.6, you don't really have to know what 1.6 is just yet, but when you go to school, they'll teach you all that, what that has to do with. But rebreathers, people who dive on rebreathers actually know that kind of stuff, because when you go to rebreather school or training, they actually teach you that kind of stuff, because in the closed loop system of a rebreather, it's taking out the CO2, and it's kind of adding here and there a little bit of oxygen, because you don't want too much oxygen, but obviously you don't want to not enough oxygen. So if you're not paying attention when you're diving on a rebreather, you can actually go above 1.6 parts per million oxygen, and it can become toxic and you can die. It's actually really interesting to note, because just in normal scuba diving, you can just strap a normal tank on your back that's just pressurized with normal air, and if you do the equations that we learned in this class, you'll be able to figure out that if you don't want to go above 1.4 parts per million oxygen in your system, diving on normal air, then you cannot go below 187 feet. If you go below that, oxygen starts to become toxic. So that's kind of good to know, because you can't just strap a tank on your back and go that deep, because you're gonna get oxygen toxicity. So when we start talking about nitrox is around 32% oxygen, which means you can't go below like 130, or else oxygen will become toxic in your system. So it's kind of interesting, because a lot of scuba divers dive all the time. They think, oh, I can just go down to a deep depth, and that's why you do that kind of training, to train on those kind of things, so that people don't just jump in the water and basically kill themselves. So then we had lunch. It was beef stroganoff. This is the first time we've had a repeat meal. So we've had beef stroganoff once already, and this was the second time. And they gave you some bread to go with it and green beans. So then after lunch, we got issued our pony bottle. If you don't know what a pony bottle is, it's basically a miniature scuba tank. It looks the exact same as a scuba tank, just like a baby one. And normal scuba tank is around 80 cubic inches, and the pony bottle we got was 19. So it's a little guy. And I asked what we're going to be using that for, because I've never used a tank that small. And they said when we go to do our scuba diving stuff, we're going to have it kind of in a sling that's going to be attached to us, and that's going to be like kind of our backup. Nothing's going to happen. We're not going to ever run out of air, but just in case of emergency, you never know what's going to happen. We have that, little bottle in case of emergency. So we got that issued to us. In my total complete gear issue video, that was one of the things, along with the dry suit, that I couldn't show you guys because I didn't have it yet. I guess they had to order them in, and they came in today, and the whole class got their own today. So and then we jumped into more physics after we got the pony bottle issue, but there was an issue brought up with VA, post 9/11 GI Bill benefits, and that was that a couple of guys didn't know that this school takes a total of 12 months out of your time. So your total, post 9/11 GI Bill benefits, you get a total of 36 months, right, to use for college or school or whatever. Well, the CDA Technical Institute, they use 12 months. And that's because I think they issue out a maximum of $25,000 per year. And since just the tuition of CDA Technical Institute, not the dorm rooms or room and board or meal plan or anything like that, the total is $25,000, and that's right there is the limit for VA. They take a total of 12 months. So even though the school is only 5 months long, they will take a total of 12 months out of your benefits. So just know that before you come. If you think that, oh, they're only going to take 5 months out, I have 7 extra months or whatever, or whatever you have, that's not true. They actually will take a full 12 months out if you use the whole thing to pay for your tuition. But on top of that, that only covers the tuition. On top of that, if you're staying in the dorms and having a meal plan and parking and, you know, taxes and stuff like that, you're gonna have to get subsidized and unsubsidized loans to cover the rest of that, or, you know, bank loans. But I just wanted to share that because a couple guys didn't know, so just sharing that with you guys. And then last thing we did for the day was we watched a movie about commercial diving. I didn't even know there was a movie about commercial diving. It's actually from 1986 and it's called Oceans of Fire. Just a brief, what it's about is that I guess in the 1970s there was a lot of diving jobs that needed to happen, but it was so dangerous back then because they didn't have any of the safety precautions they do today. And so they use convicted felons like in prison, and they go and say like, hey, if you do a bunch of diving jobs, you can, you know, get your sentence wiped clean and you get paid like $1,000 a day, which might be how the rumor of making, you know, so much money in underwater welding got started, probably because of that movie. I don't know. I wasn't around back then. I'm not that old. Yeah, so I mean, it's a pretty good movie so far, but we've only watched half of it, so we'll get to finish the rest of that later on. But I know that we're going to be diving on Friday. We're going to actually be jumping into the river and get our first taste of what it's like to not dive in a clear tank, and dive in an actual like river where it's kind of, the clarity I don't think is going to be very clear. I'll try to bring my GoPro, but we'll see. And I'll definitely be sharing that with you guys, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Leave any comments or questions down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.